All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our Tableau webinar titled Leveraging Tableau for Your Change Network. My name is Nehul Vias. I'm a Director of Analytics Consulting here at AVAP. I'm also our Tableau Solution Lead. So glad that you all are able to join us today. We've got a great use case and super excited to get into the details of this. But before we get started, I'd love to share a little bit about ourselves. Very recently, Navigator was acquired by AVAP. And together we form a cross-platform, industry-specialized global IT advisory and management consulting powerhouse. Joining together puts us in a stronger position to build for the future faster and better than before, combining a massive breadth of experienced resources across our business intelligence and analytics practice, along with our organizational change management practice. We're also the only ProSci certified change management training provider in the United States and are a thought leader in this space. Coupled with that, we are a full-service Tableau partner and covet our relationship with Tableau and love doing all things Tableau and OCM. So here we go. Let's get into the details of our use case. Joining me today are two of our great practice leads in our OCM and analytics space. We've got Josh Kuhlman from our OCM practice. Josh, welcome.
Thank you.
And we got Stacey George, our analytics practice consultant here.
Yeah, good to be here.
Thank you, Stacey. Oh, good stuff. All things Tableau, all things dashboarding, Alteryx R, and big data minded. Good stuff. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our use case today before we hand it off. We've got a great marriage of OCM analytics together today to talk about just transformation and change. So we talk about OCM and analytics and the marriage of these two. We understand that a lot of things that come with both of these worlds are imperative on data and leveraging data to drive decisions and leveraging data to drive transformation and change events. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Josh Kuhlman over here, talk a little bit about the details here, and then dig into the dashboard. Go for it, Josh.
Great. Thanks, Nehul. So as you mentioned, one of the key areas for AVAP and Navigator is our organizational change management practice. So that focus on everything from more strategic transformations and initiatives all the way down to more system implementations. Really, anytime we're introducing change for an organization that's going to impact people, we help the organization and those people through the change through a variety of techniques. So with that, one of the things that we typically do when engaged on a project is stand up a change leader coalition or change advocate network, as you may hear us talk about it. And what that really is a group of individuals within the organization that can help us support change, spread the word about change, and also give us feedback on how things are landing within the organization. And typically, when we've done these, we haven't really had a structured, data-driven way to be able to identify change agents. Typically, those are kind of hand-picked, and we think this person might be good, but we don't have any data to back that. So really excited to partner with our BI capability and demonstrate how we can leverage Tableau to leverage some of that data and really make strong decisions here in this space. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into kind of what we've done, but we've partnered with our practice lead, Dr. Shannon Sims, to look at some of those key attributes that a change agent might want in a change agent, and marry that up to survey questions we can ask and look at those attributes. So as we get into the demo, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
That's great. Why don't we dig into the details here, Josh? Go for it.
Yeah, so a few things with OCM that you may hear us talk about. So as I mentioned, organizational change management focuses on any type of change we might be introducing to an organization. You may hear us say OCM as well. Another piece that you might hear us mention is sponsors. So those are really leaders within the organization that can help us support change, but that's typically at a VP level plus. And then we also have change agents and a change agent network. So that's really what we're focused on here today, and that spans from some of those VP level individuals all the way down to your employee level, and picking those folks who can support the change and act as advocates. And then another thing that we might talk a little bit about is the J curve. And so what that is typically when we introduce change, people think that we say we're going to do change, implement it into DAO, we're in our positive future state, when really that you are going to see some sort of dip in productivity or morale, and what the J curve is really tracks that. And our role as OCM is to minimize that dip as much as possible.
Yeah, awesome. And then for this webinar, specifically from a technical end, we just wanted to take a brief minute to overview the data that's being inputted into Tableau. So for this specific use case, we're leveraging the results from an OCM-specific survey, compiled the 6 specific change agent attributes. For each of these attributes, 3 questions feed into their score. And how they get that score is that an employee is to self-identify themselves on a range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And from those qualitative answers, our BI practice has assigned a quantitative score. For example, for strongly disagree, they get a -5, disagree, -2, neutral, a 0, agree is a +2, and strongly agree being a +5. And then real quick, before we dive in, we just want to present a brief overview of what you're going to be seeing once we hit into Tableau. So the first thing you're going to see is an overview, again, highlighting our 6 change agent attributes. And there's a feature where you can type in different weights for our model. We'll show you a month overview, which is a spread of employee data where you can start identifying your change agent network. We can drill through to see exactly how those attributes break down for each individual employee. And then finally, we drill back up toward the year overview to tie in concepts such as the J-curve. And without further ado, let's jump in.
Perfect. So, the first page of the workbook is really those 6 attributes that we talked about earlier. And those range from adaptability and flexibility, so how flexible and adaptable is that individual, the credibility that they have within the organization, things like individual considerations. So that's like, one, can we provide the individual with coaching and mentorship? And then, how persuasive and inspirational is this individual? Are they supportive of the change and the organization as a whole? And then their willingness and openness to new ideas. So those are really the things we want to focus on. And Stacey is going to drive us through how we, map some of the key questions to those 6 attributes.
Yeah, and real quick, I just want to highlight some of the unique features that Tableau allows us to leverage. So for example, Tableau dashboards can really take on a bunch of different look and feels. This right here is a pretty good all-encompassing takeaways of the data that we're honing in on. So as Josh kind of hit on, you'll have each of the change agent attributes listed here, a brief description, and then when you hover over, Tableau populates what is known as a tooltip. And in that tooltip, populates the 3 questions assigned to each attribute. And in this case, it will say the statements, which each employee assigns himself the strongly disagree to strongly agree. You can hover over each one, and as you can tell, it does populate and change accordingly. And then over here on this column, what you're seeing is a different dialog box that you can kind of change weights and numbers to. And we'll dive into that more specifically later, but it's just going to be another way for your company to fit their own unique preferences and experiences.
Yeah, and you might want to change those weights, if you really value, maybe it's even a stated value within your organization, adaptable and flexible, you might want to put a stronger weight on that, where maybe you're a really flat organization, and, maybe everyone has a fairly equal amount of credibility, so you might want to, lower that. So we'll dive a little bit more into that, but let's go ahead and, say that we've been engaged on a project for a month or so now. We've gathered some initial data, and we dive into kind of this first set of survey results. So that's what we're seeing here now. And the BI team has, created this view that really summarizes those results and key scores for those individual, highest score being 21 currently, and then the lowest being, somewhere a little bit lower than -10. And I'll let Stacey kind of drive us into what those mean and some of the functions of this dashboard.
Yeah, let's take a moment to really understand what exactly we're looking at. So over here on the left is populating a standard box plot of each of the employees' scores. So all of these gray little dots are different individuals of the company and how they're scoring. This top line, in typical box plot fashion, is the maximum for this spread, where the low line is the minimum, and right here in the middle is that median score. Over here on the right side, it's a different way to see the same information. So it's more of a typical list view where you're getting the department, first and last name, where that person works, which geography they're at, and their score. And then, of course, Tableau's kind of signature thing that they leverage often are the filter capabilities. So you can filter by different departments if you so choose, the geography, and up here is kind of a sliding scale if you wanted to hone in on a certain range.
So yeah, now that we have this data, one of the things we might want to do is really focus on those top, 25%, so we can leverage the box plot to filter the list. And so now that's filtered the list on the right, and we could go through and look at some of those individuals, pick some of those based on geography or function or department, like Stacy was saying, on who we'd want to engage as part of the change agent network. But we also might want to engage some of those lower 25% individuals. We know that converting some of our strongest dissenters can be one of the best things for a change, long term. So we might want to engage some of those individuals. So let's say we want to engage Lionel. We see that he's in Ohio, -3, it's not not super negative, but obviously has some work.
And then quickly from a Tableau perspective, what we're about to experience is the drill through. So you can go ahead and click on Lionel's name, and it shows our next view.
Perfect. So we've landed at this view, and you can see the 6 attributes down on the bottom that we've mapped those questions to. We can see their score for each of those attributes. And on Lionel, I can easily tell that he is not supportive of the change or the organization. So from an OCM perspective, we want to definitely dig into that if we want to engage him as a change agent and figure out, why isn't he supportive? Maybe we include him in a focus group where we're going to talk about support for the change. Maybe we even just have, a one-on-one conversation to better understand that. But then that helps us also, focus on where he needs coaching. Also some of the other areas might be individual consideration as well. So yeah, that's kind of the insights that we could drive here in terms of, Lionel specific and what we need to do with him.
Yeah, and then just from some data highlights, what you're seeing on the y-axis, it's kind of a reminder that a strongly agree that maximum value is a 5, that strongly disagree is going to be a -5. And just for our audience, this total change score is calculated by adding up each of these attributes. So that's where this -3 is coming from, just from a simple addition. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our year overview to see what would happen over time if you collect all of these insights and aggregate them.
Great. So this is really showing us that J-curve. So let's say we engaged with this organization, somewhere in the January timeframe, did our first survey in February, and we, have leveraged those insights now. So we've established the can. We're doing this survey on a monthly basis. It's now that May timeframe, and what this is showing us is that bottom red line is kind of the standard industry average J-curve that we've mocked up. And it shows a dip in kind of productivity and how people are feeling towards the change. And then, over time, we, get to that kind of positive end state. And the blue line is how our organization is trending. So everything up until that May timeframe, where you see that second bar down the middle, is current data. And then everything past May on that blue is projected based on both, current answers and then also comparing that to, a typical trend that you might see. And we'll drive into how we can leverage some of that data too, but I'll let Stacey kind of show off some of the features here as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Josh. As Josh kind of hit hard on this nice J-curve, I think he did a great job explaining that. So I do want to take a moment to just highlight this top graph, what you're seeing up here. You're seeing the breakdown of each of the individual change agent attributes for the current month. So in this case, the current month is May. By each of those scores, you're going to see an arrow in the color, which is a different indicator showing how it's trending comparative to last month. So again, we're looking at May's, and the indicator is showing how it compares to April's hard-coded data. In the tooltip, it's populating that percent of change from last month. Some of the actionable items that you can take away from this top view is to start deciding as a company, are there specific change agents that you want to hone in on, the attributes themselves, and which ones to weigh maybe less or more. For example, you can tell that adaptability and flexibility is at that low score of -5, and it hasn't been changing. It's at a neutral because of that gray sideways arrow. So what we can do is we can pop back over to our attribute overview. We mentioned that you could kind of customize these weights over here. So we're going to show you that feature now. So again, because it was a -5 and it's not trending in a positive direction, we're going to weigh this attribute heavily. We want to focus on it and see what happens in the long term if we really overvalue it compared to the others. And then just the way the model works, because there's 6 attributes, you want these numbers to add up to a 6. So If you really want to value adaptability and flexibility, you're going to have to devalue a different one. So in this case, let's just knock down credibility. And what these weights will do is if we jump back into our year overview, a yellow line will populate.
Yeah, and so what that really helps us do is, by putting that extra value on adaptability and flexibility, it signals to our team that we probably need to focus a little bit more on that, especially since it's trending at a negative value and hasn't really changed. And if we do focus on that, we're going to see that we might, potentially be at a better state over the long run based on the model. So I think that's just, a great insight there that really helps drive our team. But, one of the other things that we would want to do with this team is, so, we've been engaged with this can for a few months now. We might want to evaluate how things are going. Well, yes, we're above the expected, red line. Probably want to make sure that we're really heading in the positive direction. So let's go ahead and drill into, maybe the April, that was the previous month's results, and look at how individuals are trending. So, we see that same kind of breakdown by the individual results, but this time we can see who is engaged in a change network and who isn't. So, and we can also do some filtering, as Stacy was talking about earlier, by department and function. So let's go ahead and filter, by one of the departments. So if we focus on the engineers, we can see that there's an individual that is an outlier here that isn't engaged in the change network. So we can see that since they're red. So PEG is probably someone that we do want to go ahead and engage. They're really positive, overall great change score. So want to go, tap them on the shoulder and get them engaged. But we also, let's just look at the whole company again and look at those who are engaged in the change network. So, as Stacy's doing, she just filtered on anyone who is a yes. And we can see that we went ahead and, in April, the lowest score here is one of the members of the change network. So we probably want to drill a little bit into Sherwin and figure out what can we be doing as a change team to really convert that score.
Yeah, and again, just as a Tableau advocate, the features here are amazing. You can do that quick filtering up here at the top. You can do the select filtering, which just immediately pops that color of yes. And you're seeing that, again, called out on this box plot, but also highlighted in yellow on the side. Another really neat feature that Tableau has done for us is it's sorted on this side by the highest score to the lowest. So over here, we can tell that Sherwin is the lowest. But you could also just scroll all the way down here. Again, it's highlighted yellow for yes. And he's also the very last entry on this view. But let's go ahead and drill down and see how he shakes out.
Great. So what this is really telling me then, as a change manager, is the key areas that we need to focus on with Sherwin. So really getting down to that individual level. So we can see that Sherwin isn't adaptable and flexible, so probably want to provide some coaching there. Overall, he isn't able to potentially take some coaching. If we look at that individual consideration, so something we want to think about there as well, and then just willingness and openness to new ideas. How might we be able to target some of the messaging towards him to improve that score? But one of the key things here too that is great is he is really supportive of the change in the organization. So that is something that we can leverage. Maybe we have a spotlight on him on why he's so supportive at one of the change agent meetings, and leverage that piece that he is really strong. And that's probably why we engaged him in the first place in the network.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just one of the big takeaways, not only are you able to easily call out these narratives, but Tableau just lets those stories pop out in ways that you wouldn't necessarily get from just simple survey looking and combing through. But let's hop back into our slide deck just to make sure we're wrapping everything up.
Yeah, so, I think as we've highlighted, this really helps us take, what has typically been a process of, maybe just individually choosing people based on some qualitative, more subjective type data, and really analyze it in a fast, powerful way to, not only look at the whole organization view, but drive those individual, trends and what we need to do with that individual per se.
So I want to pause for a second.
Yeah.
First, awesome use case. Second, having been around the block in a lot of transformation efforts, the adage back in the day was our change management methodology is train the end user, right? We can implement a rocket ship of a system. but it dies on the vine if we're not driving change from a people perspective. The people power associated with a change agent network allows you to have that peer-to-peer mentorship and advocacy in the trenches. And I think a tool like this, again, helps identify those folks that you want aligned to carry the flag for that transformation effort. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The other piece of this too, right, is the continuous improvement of understanding how those folks in the change agent network are reacting as part of the transformation, right? They're going through their own journey. And to understand how to tweak the levers and forecasting how is this particular person going to react to a certain event? How is the organization in aggregate going to react to a particular event? Really gives you what I would consider the ability to be proactive and the mentality of driving transformation. And this isn't just systems transformation, right? This can be applicable to a new business process, or we've got a new policy in place, right? We're trying to figure out ways to drive the advocacy to carry the flag forward. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I wanted to pause and just bring that up because I think that gets lost on a lot of people, the power of a change agent network.
Yes.
And what it could do. And again, it's been a make it or break it for me in my own personal kind of project management experience in carrying the flag and having other people support the transformation. So awesome.
I mean, it was beautifully said. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and then just from like a data side, I wanted to call out some important things to know. Tableau can leverage a bunch of different ways to both connect to stagnant and live data sources. So again, we leveraged an OCM-specific survey, but Tableau can handle and manipulate and blend a bunch of different sources. So I think the important thing here with this tool that we demoed today is that you can come as you are. We're willing to adopt to different company needs and show how their data that they've already collected can really come to life for them. Another feature from the data standpoint is we highlighted the capability of that yellow line that you saw, that forecasting capability. Not only does Tableau come with its own built-in forecasting capabilities and that we have models that we can plug and play with, there's also ways that Tableau can easily blend with more advanced modeling from Python and R and modeling alike.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So another piece to that too, right? We're looking at this use case in a more granular lens of an internal change agent network. But let's think about the scalability of something like this. When we're implementing change, we've got internal stakeholders, we've got external stakeholders, right? The ability to connect not only to static sets of data, which for this use case, I think we're looking at an Excel workbook, but even to hook something up from a live feed, right? If we're talking about survey tools out there similar to Qualtrics, and we've got a customer feed that's coming in, we could essentially have this capability, a dashboard or workbook within Tableau, understand real life data coming in real time, and give us, again, an opportunity to make some of the course corrections that we need to move the needle with them. Because it's not only internal change agents, right? We want those brand change agents on the external side as well. To understand that applicability and that scale, super important. And again, in my experience, just working from a consultant's perspective, you got to move the needle on both sides, and you got to be proactive on both sides. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. I think that, there's plenty of other use cases too. I know we've really focused on the change agent specific today, but both, inside of change management, tracking things like, your ad card throughout the organization, looking at things like stakeholder analysis. There's, plenty of other ways we can apply very similar data-driven approaches. But I know there's also plenty outside of change management too that we were talking about.
Yep. No, that's fantastic. So I do want to take a quick pause here, do a quick time check. Anyone that has questions that may be on the webinar, certainly get them into the chat box. We're happy to take them as we go, but I'm going to keep going with this because I also see the opportunity here when we talk about scale for utility like this, right? We're talking about transformation from a project level perspective, but there's nothing saying that this can't stop and help drive program level change, right? An aggregate of projects, an aggregate of individual initiatives that are driving towards the common good. When we think about scale and applicability, again, data can be voluminous. Data can be multiple threads of data coming into one. Obviously, we've seen the ability to not only leverage Tableau Prep to aggregate and consolidate that data, but then also feed it in from an Alteryx perspective as well, right? Good stuff there. The one thing that I will say too is on top of all of the dashboarding efforts that you're seeing here, we can also implement a quick and effective security design. So we're not only providing insights, but we're providing governance and guardrails around those insights, right? We talk about federated environments that may have change events going on at the same time. Do we need to be sensitive of the data? Absolutely. So that's fantastic. Vanessa, do we have any questions coming in here?
We do.
Seems challenging as teams respond. Can you read that out for me?
So this person would ask, it seems challenging to get the team to respond as often as monthly on their attributes. How do you do this and get honest, timely responses to track change and the J-curve?
Yeah, so I know one of the things that we've seen really, effective is actually doing some of the surveying and polling within the meetings themselves. Typically with a change agent network, it's something that you're going to meet on a monthly basis per se, and hopefully you're getting a fair amount of people to show up at those meetings and doing that live there, because we know that if you just send out a survey, in an email, it gets lost and you're going to get a low response rate. So I know that's one of the things that we've seen really effective is doing it live in person.
Yep. And I think, the nature of change events too, with all of this of the data, needs to be respective of the candor of the stakeholders that are providing you that insight. So I think that's the other part of this too, right? Good, bad, or ugly. We've seen that you can have weighted scales as a part of this. So we're trying to embrace change holistically and take what we have. Maybe it's a little bit of a reactionary perspective from a survey coming in, but have it more from a proactive perspective of course correction, right? So we're intermittently going through lessons learned with all of this. It's fantastic. Do we have any other questions?
Yep, we had one other one come in.
Read it here. Okay, yep, we got one right here. Okay. Are there other opportunities to do static and live sets of data coming in together? I think absolutely so, right? We could have live connections feeding and also static data that's coming in. Again, marry those within Tableau and rock and roll moving forward from there.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. Okay, any other questions? Okay, that sounds good. All right, so one of the things an ask of me is really from a follow-up perspective, if we do have additional questions that come in, we got one right here.
All right, this person asked, did I hear that you are using Qualtrics for the surveys? Does the dashboard link directly to Tableau?
So in general, for this specific use case, we're leveraging just Excel as our data source. However, Tableau does marry well with a lot of different source systems. Our OCM practice, I believe, has leveraged Qualtrics in the past, so that's not a software that we are unfamiliar with or are scared by. So I would say anyone who is familiar with that tool and wants that data leveraged, happy to tackle that and apply it to this type of scenario.
Yeah, and there are a myriad of opportunities to leverage APIs, right, in the context of hooking up Tableau from a live data connection to various source systems. So again, it doesn't need to be Qualtrics, just an opportunity here to mention that one, but we can take a lot of different types of live connections, get these things hooked up within Tableau, again, mine and aggregate the data and then represent it in meaningful ways for you to, again, take action upon. I think the nature of this is actionable insights. It's not going to solve problems right off the bat, but it's going to give you an opportunity to at least gain visibility into them, course correct, plan, and iteratively execute. So you're, again, driving quality change across your organization. Okay. Wanted to talk a little bit about our social media presence. Obviously, we've got a LinkedIn page from our AVAP company site here. We are also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, certainly several different ways for you all to reach out to us. I am also an old school guy, so if you ever just feel like picking up the phone and calling us, certainly do that as well. Our contact number is on the website there. And all things considered, this is, again, us dipping our toe within the world of OCM and analytics. There is a wealth of opportunity in front of us collectively to drive data insights across a myriad of transformation events. I know, Josh, you talked a little bit about ADCAR and the constructs of what ProSci offers you in the entire kind of playbook of change. And then Stacy, from a data perspective, I think it's really this fearless ingestion of data, ambiguous data, qualitative data, quantitative data, and having an opportunity to mine it, aggregate it, and represent it in meaningful insights and provide people with actionable keyword actionable opportunities to drive positive change. With that said, I can't thank you all enough for joining us today. Certainly, you're going to get a copy of this webinar coming your way by email. We're also going to send you all a copy of this deck. And from there,
Yeah, thank you all for joining.
Thank you
so much. Have a great day.